Hey y'all, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. This is Joey's Booked. Today we are going to be talking about some 2024 releases that fall under either the horror or thriller genres. I've had one or two books sent to me in the mail. I've had some others that I've gotten either in book boxes or ordered myself that I'm really excited to get into. Some of these are authors that I love, some of these are ones that I haven't read yet, but I'm really curious to see what all they have going on. I am not 100% sure which all of these books I'm going to pick up just yet, but I know that I'm going to be picking up at least two or three throughout this video. The first one that is the only one that I know for sure is a thriller is going to be The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. All I know about this so far is we are supposedly on this island where it's taking place, and there is this fog that comes in, and there are like scientists because there's something deadly about the fog, and now some of the scientists are starting to die and people are trying to figure out what's going on. I know it's supposed to have some sci-fi twist. I've heard some pretty good things about it so far, but I haven't heard a whole lot, and it's one that I'm really excited to be getting. I got this recently as a aardvark book pick, and I'm really curious to see where this one goes, so this is one that we might be looking at. And then this one was a pre-release because I absolutely love this author. They're slowly making their way as into one of my all-time favorites, and that is going to be Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I know this is a really popular one right now that everyone's starting to pick up, and I, as well, being a huge Paul Tremblay fan, really can't wait to see what he does with this one. I'm not sure personally how I feel about kind of the haunted film or movie kind of trope that I know is used in here, which is really about all I know about this because I've been trying to avoid as much information as possible. So this is another possibility that we might be reading. Another aardvark book pick, and one of my most anticipated books of this year, would probably be The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim. I know that this is horror of some kind. I know it, obviously, with the title and the cover, that it heavily involves eyeballs, which eyeballs are one of the few things that really just freak me out to read about. And I believe that it's just supposed to get really unhinged. I've heard amazing reviews about this so far, which has me even more excited about it. So this is another contender. And then we have Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman, and this one just came in the mail yesterday. Now, I have read from Josh Malerman once before. A House at the Bottom of the Lake, I think is the correct way to say that title name. This one is a Book of the Month add-on right now that recently came in a box. And I was interested in this one, and I wasn't even going to get it. I was just going to get it from the library. All I've heard is amazing things about people saying this is one of the most creepy things that they've ever read. And it's giving me major Coraline vibes, which was one of my favorite dark kids movies growing up, especially with the description in this one about it being about an other mommy. And it's also from a kid's perspective, which I find really interesting. It's either one of those things that can make a book or break it, depending on how well the author does. And basically, this seems kind of like a haunting story. There is I believe she's like a 6 or 8-year-old girl, something like that. She's young, and she has this other mommy in her house who whispers to her at night and asks her to let her into her heart. And it just seems like it's going to be really freaky and really creepy. I'm really excited for this one as well. And the one book that I know for sure will be included in this vlog, because I actually already started it and then realized I forgot to film this intro. A Mask of Flies by Matthew Lyons. This one kind of has both horror and thriller kind of aspects into it already so far, and I was thankful enough to receive an arc of this from Tor Nightfire, because I don't believe this comes out until sometime in August. I'm not sure the exact date. So in this, we are following Anne, and Anne is a career criminal. She is on the run from a bank heist that has gone wrong with her team. And along with Anne, though, in the car, she has Jessup, who was one of her partners from the heist, who has been shot. And she is also holding hostage a cop who was trying to stop them, that she has basically handcuffed and put in the trunk of her car. When Anne returns to her childhood home, some crazy stuff starts to go down. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, which I'll be updating on as I read along. So far, I can say this one is really, really freaky. I was kind of worried about picking this one up because I wasn't sure how I was going to do with the whole crime aspect, and I've been doing kind of fine with it. I really don't usually like detectives and cops and all of that kind of stuff in what I'm reading, but so far it has worked really well in here. I'm about 200 pages in, which is also far later in this book than I planned on updating, but it is a wild ride, and at times it's really, really, really difficult to put down. So basically, in the beginning, Anne is driving out to this family home where some freaky stuff has happened. When she was a little girl, all she remembers is that her mom had died here, and they left and never came back. She was raised by, I believe, her grandmother. It starts out, you get the whole bank heist situation. She flees, she takes this cop hostage. And this isn't a spoiler because it says it in the synopsis, but pretty early on into this, her partner that's been shot, Jessup, dies. They go looking for him. Well, she goes looking for him. Something has, completely mutilated him. And then her and this cop that she's holding hostage are already freaked out, and then something comes knocking on the door that looks like Jessup, but it's not. And let me tell you, the way that the first section of this book ended, I thought it was going to be slow and not my thing, and then it had me hooked. Whatever way that Matthew Lyons describes this, I'm going to call it a creature because I don't really know what it is at this point, even 200 pages in, but this thing is freaky. And I don't normally get much of a rise out of a book, but there's something about the descriptions in this that it's really freaked me out. Now, after that, it's been more on the crime case, which I'm not as invested in, but it's still being made to be interesting. There are so many elements so far that are being introduced. We've had talks of what I'm assuming is supposed to be a cult. I don't actually know what's going on fully right now. We've got questionable queer relationships forming. We've got crime. We've got all of these different dynamics between these different players that were in this criminal case. And it is just really insane and really, really intense. And it keeps that energy going. It's got a lot of gory kind of factors to it, even though it's not always horror stuff. I'm actually really enjoying this way more than I thought I would. So now that I am caught up, since I clearly don't know how to keep up with my own projects at this point, I'm going to keep reading this, and I will let you know when I've gotten quite a bit further, hopefully, into this, because I don't want to put it down. Alright, so I don't know the last time I've updated this, but I am happy to say that I finally finished A Mask of Flies by Matthew Lyons. I am in the middle right now of packing and getting ready for the McKay's road trip that I am going on with Tabitha for their 50th anniversary. So I'm going to try to keep this brief. I'll talk more about that later on. Having finally finished this, I am going to land on 4 stars. A lot of it has to deal with some of the character building. The last 100 pages of this did not fully work for me like the rest of the book did. This took me forever to read because it has very, very descriptive writing. It's not even the length of it, which it is about 430 something pages, and I didn't have an audiobook or anything, so that does take me longer. I've just been so busy. I was reading maybe 20 pages a day at some point, which is very unlike me. Took me a while to get through, and it just drug a little bit. So I really enjoyed the first half. It was crazy. It was wild. I was having a really good time with it. And then the last 100 pages or so, a lot of things were happening for convenience just to wrap it up, and it was not working for me. Also, there is like a relationship kind of love interest type situation in here, and I did not feel anything for these 2 characters until the very end. The thing this book suffers from the most, though, is it is trying to do too many things at once. And that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it, because I'm still giving this 4 stars. It just means it had too many things going on to work. There are monster elements, there are crime elements, there is almost a level of cosmic horror in here. There is suggestions of like cult-like activity. There's a love interest. There is grief. Could have been done really well if it was separated out, and to a degree were, but they lacked a lot of depth that I wanted because so much was happening. A lot of the relationships in here suffered because all of the description was into what was happening and not as much of forming relationships between these people that are stuck together. Because there's also almost like a found family kind of thing at some point. But it never really feels that way because they have limited connection because of the situations they're in. The ending, it got too existential for me in the last, especially 50 pages or so. There's a point in cosmic horror that whenever I pick it up, I don't like it if it gets too much into why are we in this plane of existence? What is the world? What is the meaning of life? It loses me after a while. I get it. People have thoughts like that. This is nothing against you if you're one of those people. But when I see it and it's drawn out in a book, it loses me. So when that kind of started, it also started to lose me a bit. I do think this is a crazy wild time. I think it is definitely worth picking up if it's something that you might be interested in. Know that there's a lot that is going on, and it helps to read it at a slower pace. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and finish packing up. I've grabbed a couple of books and stuff I'm going to be taking on my trip, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be reading next. It's for this vlog, but I will come back and update you guys once I know exactly what I'm picking up next. Alright, so it's been a minute since I've updated this video. Just a few days ago, I got back from the McKay's road trip that me and Tabitha went on, and we vlogged our experiences if you haven't checked out that video yet. Plus, I've been in a bit of a reading slump since reading A Mask of Flies. It was a great book. It's just made it really hard for me to focus on anything. So, it's taken me a little bit to read more than like 20-30 pages at a time, which is not my usual. Normally, I kind of get lost when I sit down in a book. So the good thing is I have went ahead and picked up my next read, and that is going to be The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. Now, I have finally gotten a good ways into this book. I believe I am around the 200-page mark, so a little over halfway. And I am really enjoying it so far. So, this is something that's really outside of my comfort zone. It is more of a sci-fi, dystopian, apocalyptic kind of thing. And I like some of those aspects in books sometimes, but it's rare that I read something that's specifically that. So in this, we are following Abby, who is some type of AI or program or something that has the consciousness of all of the villagers that are on this island. And this village on the island is the last surviving civilization that they know of, at least, on Earth. And basically, we are just kind of figuring out, we're following these different villagers and who they call the elders, who are like the scientists who basically stopped this deadly fog that covered the Earth from reaching this island. And we are just kind of figuring out what's going on because not everything is as it seems. And it just kind of becomes, honestly, more of a mystery book. I thought this was going to be a lot more of a thriller when I picked it up, not just because of the name, but because of what was going on. But it's definitely more of a mystery. So the first half is a mystery of what's going on in this village. And then roughly where I'm at, and it mentions this in the synopsis, even though it's like halfway through the book that this happens, is there is a murder. Basically, the village is forced to figure out how to keep this fog away before all of humanity is destroyed. It's really good, it's really weird, and it's really hard to talk about much past what is going on there, especially without giving any spoilers, because there's a lot of twists and turns along the way. And it's actually, for something that is kind of convoluted and sci-fi and stuff like that, it is really easy to follow and understand. So I'm enjoying it a lot so far, and I'm going to keep reading it. But since I'm at that halfway point, I thought I'd go ahead and kind of give an update. So I will check back in later on, or in the next few days or years or whatever it is at this point, because it feels like I'm never updating. But once I've finished it, I'll let you know. And then I think we'll pick up maybe one more book for this vlog. And we are back with the breaking update of Joey forgot to update the vlog again. It's been about 2 or 3 days since I finished The Last Murder at the End of the World. And I did not intentionally put this off. I just forgot to update. I don't remember what all I said about this at my halfway check-in, but this was not at all what I expected because I didn't look into it. And now that I've read up more on Stuart Turton, I realize all he writes are really weird mysteries. So this is a sci-fi post-apocalyptic dystopian murder mystery. It's a mouthful. But you can't say that 5 times fast. And it is just a lot to it. But I am happy to say I do think I'm going to give this 4 stars. So throughout this, there is this whole civilization that has survived the zombie apocalypse and all of that, which is great. I was fine with that. I'm fine with post-apocalyptic stuff. And I was like, okay, this is just going to make it a little bit different of that take once that murder mystery really started to go. But the issue that this book had, and the reason I'm giving it 4 stars, it wanted to do too many things in a way that was really repetitive after a while. I never lost interest in the book, and I never lost interest in figuring out what was going to happen, but instead of just giving, like, red herrings, it kept just bouncing back and forth between, like, the same couple of suspects, and it kept having the main character that we're following, that Emery that is figuring things out, just suddenly notice what is going on and be like, oh, well, this makes sense because this. And while there was a lot of investigation, it felt very all over the place. The other thing is for the type of story this is supposed to be, where if we don't find the killer or the world ends, it really didn't feel as high stakes as it was to me. There was almost something cozy about it to me, and I think it's just Turton's writing style, which I really liked. It made all of the sci-fi and weird kind of elements really accessible. It just left it where I wanted a little more from the mystery, and I wanted a little bit more to these stakes that were high but didn't always feel it. So I'm going to settle on that 4 star. I'm really happy I did pick this up, and I'm really interested because I believe I have another, I think it's a 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is on my shelf, and I think it will probably get bumped up in my TBR quite a bit. I think I'm going to pick up one more book for this vlog. The other 2 books that I have, I think I've come up with some other video ideas that they can fit into, especially since I've been kind of dragging on my reading on this vlog, and I have a lot of other stuff I want to get to this month. So I'm going to pick up one more book, which I don't have on me right now. So I'm going to give you that update once I've started it, and I've got a little bit of thoughts. So I'll see you here soon. It is yet again many days later, and at this point I have both picked up and finished The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim. So I was going to do updates on this one, but I am now in the middle of getting back into my work schedule, and I just did not have time in between, but I am happy to say that I absolutely loved this book. This is probably going to end up in my top books of the year. It is definitely a 5-star read for me, and it is one of my most anticipated for 2024, so I'm even more excited that it went well. In this, we are following Jaeyeon, and Jaeyeon is a Korean American. She is in her first semester of college, and she is just dealing with some different bouts in life. She's struggling a little bit in school. She didn't get into the same colleges as some of her friends, and her father has just left her mother and her sister alone. And as this story continues on, Jaeyeon starts to kind of have a bit of madness start to happen. The title in this, The Eyes Are Best Part, is kind of based around a lot of the Korean American themes and what it's like to be a Korean American woman. Really about the idea of if you eat the eyes of a fish, that is supposed to bring you good luck. And then as the story develops, Jaeyeon starts to have even more of a obsession with eyeballs. She gets really obsessed. It gets out of hand. It goes from there. And this is the kind of weird fiction that just works perfectly for me. I loved the commentary, being in a Korean American woman and being in an immigrant family, and just all of the different dynamics within the Korean identity, or Korean American identity in this case. There were lots of other topics discussed as well, even though they weren't as big, especially with fetishism of Asian women. and I thought that was some of the best done stuff, especially the awareness that's brought to that. Overall, I just absolutely loved it. I think there were a few times when some of the dialogue didn't quite hit for me, but the vibes alone, the weird, creepy, awkward, just vibes, brought it up to that 5-star. I think this is a must-read in 2024 horror and one of the strongest things I've read yet this year. So definitely do recommend it. At this point, I'm just recently home from work and I'm exhausted, so hopefully that last update made a little bit of sense. I think I'm going to end this vlog here. It's been weeks from my perspective, even though you guys have probably watched this in like 20-30 minutes, something like that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got some new horror and mystery recommendations in this case, since our one book wasn't really much of a thriller after all. If you enjoyed this video, leave an eyeball emoji down below, for the eyes are the best part. And be sure to both like and subscribe down below. Thank you for checking this one out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.